just to give you a little bit of background, the project is Accelerate, full name Accessible Immersive Learning for Art and Design, and essentially that's what it is. That captures all the kind of key elements for this particular project. It is Erasmus funded. We have almost 300,000 euros to play with over 2 years, from June this year through to May 2023. It was a call put out in response to the pandemic, specifically on a range of areas, but we focus specifically on COVID's impact on higher education. Our approach is to think about developing practical open source solutions that are scalable, inclusive, sustainable, and responsive. And that's all I'm going to say at this point. If you want more details about the specifics of what we said in the application, very happy to share that with you. But I want to focus more on the kind of practicalities. So our aims are around digital innovation. That was partly what the call was looking for. And obviously, as you'll know, we are particularly interested in the teaching of practice-based subjects in art and design, broadly defined, looking at immersive technology as one new way of approaching, innovating, particularly post-COVID. A very strong emphasis on accessibility, and accessibility very broadly defined. How do we make immersive technology as accessible to staff and students as possible, and particularly paying attention to underrepresented groups within our student body, also amongst our staff, whether that's for physical disabilities, sort of social, cultural characteristics that are presenting challenges, whether it can be sort of technical and technological anxiety or inequalities. So we are approaching this in as inclusive a way as possible. Our partners, I've already mentioned them, 2 UK partners, 1 Irish partner, 1 Polish and 2 Ukrainian. Again, very happy at a later date to talk about how we put that group together, but we try to bring together people who have particular expertise and experiences in particular elements of the project. Academic leads, so hopefully, depending on which university you've come from, you should know who your primary academic contact is. I've already mentioned myself, Rachel and Adele, so we're the team based at Bath Spa. If you need to email us, accelerate@bathspa.ac.uk will reach us as a whole. The structure, so we'll get down to the details here. There's sort of 4 main elements to this kind of project, and these are set essentially ahead of time by the call. So we have project meetings, we have intellectual outputs, which in other words, things that we will produce that will last beyond the project. We have learning, teaching, training activities, which essentially for us is around training, and we have multiplier events, which are public dissemination events at the end of the project. The project meetings, some of you on this call are part of the project meeting team, and these are the meetings that we will have over the coming 2 years, some in person, hopefully, and some online. And those planning meetings are simply to make sure the project stays on track. We also then, I mentioned the intellectual outputs, and we have 5, and I won't go into them in a lot of detail, but in essence, we start with a diagnosis of the impact of COVID on our teaching, the students, the staff, and that is going to consist of a questionnaire or questionnaires plus focus groups being led by a Polish partner. And that is the first part of the project, and we'll be completing around February or next year. We then have a methodological guide, which Jenny is leading on, which will be essentially a set of resources that capture all the knowledge and learning and ideas that are generated by this project. A training course, which will be aimed at art and design lecturers outside of the project, to go from not knowing anything about this technology and by the end of it understanding how it can be used in their teaching. Fundamental to the project is a software platform, an ecosystem, an immersive ecosystem, which will bring together all the technological bits that are vital to the project, but actually will be very much aimed at creating a space that is intuitive and accessible for art and design colleagues within the project and ultimately beyond the project to work with students on projects, teaching assignments, and so on. And then last but not least, but for many of you, this will be something that you will be participating in this afternoon, case studies. And these are essentially where we identify particular subjects in each of the partners, bring them together and let them collaborate using some of these tools, getting them to think about the opportunities and the challenges, and then the experiences that they have will fit into the methodological guide. And I noticed there that I haven't put a partner lead, but that's Bath Spa. Training activities. So we planned 4 training activities, 3 days each. We had hoped to have one in Bath now, which would have taken place this week. Instead, we're having an online event, which is just 1 day. That's why it's called pre-training, because it can't be described formally in the project as training. And then we will have 2 sets of training in February and March in the UK, then one in July, and then one the following February. The event today is part of that first tranche of training. And then multiple events, the promotion, as I mentioned, that will be right at the end of the project, and we're anticipating simultaneous 1-day events in UK, Ireland, Poland, and Ukraine. So that's the 5-minute overview of the project as a whole. So I'm now going to pass over to Jenny to talk a little bit about the rationale for the training that is starting today with the 2 sessions today, and then we'll continue in February. So Jenny, over to you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Ian, and welcome everyone. I'm very much looking forward to working with you over the coming years. So as Ian mentioned, there are a total of 4 3-day training events hosted throughout the whole project in Bath, London, Dublin and Warsaw from February 22 through to February 23. Now, as you've probably seen, those training activities are really integral to the development of the project, and they inform all of those intellectual outputs. So all of the training activities feature in the methodological guide, they inform the development of the online training course, and they significantly shape the development of the immersive ecosystem. And the case studies are a core element of this project. So today, the Accessible Pedagogies is the first training event of the project. So we're holding this pre-training event to begin to define the scope of accessibility for the project's activities that will then inform and be expanded upon in the full training event, hopefully in person in Bath in February. Today's pre-training event will also see the launch of those case study pairings, and we'll take you through that in detail at 1:30, where we'll talk specifically about the logistics of those case studies. So in today's session, we're going to introduce partners and we'll begin to explore issues of accessibility in teaching in higher education by sharing how we understand and interpret accessibility across institutions and within higher education. So we'll be fortunate enough to have some introductory sessions led by faculty from Bath Spa's School of Education and also from our student support team, who have particular specialisms in accessibility, in inclusivity, disability studies and student engagement. And it's at this point today where we'll really begin to consider what are the different kinds of accessibility and who are the disadvantaged or perhaps underrepresented student groups in higher education. We'll also have those case study sessions where you'll meet your partners for the first time later this afternoon. So today's event is very much about providing an opportunity for us to share insight and to learn from each other and to begin to explore how pedagogical practice can foster inclusivity. And by separating these elements from the February training event, the hope is that we'll be centering our focus very much on accessibility. That's the core element of this project. So we start with it, that's our core focus, where we think about exploring disadvantaged and underrepresented student groups. and setting that as the core premise. Can we have the next slide, please? So we'll have this session today. That will then enable us in February, when we meet, where the next subsequent training sessions will be informed by today's discussions. So the February sessions will expand upon the ideas and issues raised in today's session. The February training sessions will be led by faculty from the School of Education and also colleagues from the School of Art, Film and Media. And it's in the February session where we'll begin to examine obstacles for technology and how the pandemic perhaps exacerbated existing challenges, but also created new challenges for accessibility. So throughout, you can see this core emphasis on exploring different kinds of accessibility. Within that February session as well, we will hold some focus group sessions to really analyse that diagnostic report. And it's at that point where we'll be able to check and reconsider the focus and the development of the case study groups, the case study pairings, to see if there are perhaps areas for focus that can help us with some more kind of strategic planning. We'll also hold some sessions to consider the framework for how we monitor, how we evaluate accessibility through our sessions as well. And also to consider what elements of the training can inform the development of the project's immersive ecosystem. So today's session really informs how we'll meet in February. So this slide gives us an overview of those dates in February. We are really hoping that you will be able to attend and come along to this session. We understand you are all tremendously busy people. So hopefully by getting these dates in your calendars now, we can work towards them. And of course, if you're unable to make them, we can share the information as well. The February event, the core 2 days of Thursday and Friday, we will provide that opportunity to kind of really discuss and share and explore key topics. And on the Saturday, you'll notice that there is some time and space to kind of meet and have some contact time with your partners and perhaps visit some local galleries and museums, potentially to consider how they explore accessibility as well. This afternoon session, meeting at 1:30, we will provide detail and insight into the case study structure, about the afternoon session, about what we're hoping that you'll achieve from some introductory meetings. And we'll also go into then what the plan is subsequent after that stage as well.
Thank you, Jenny. Particularly given you've got lecturers' throats by the sound of things, having had teaching for 2 weeks. Start the next session, which Tanvir and Stuart will be leading on. And I want to make sure that we do start that on time, because there's a lot in there and it looks really interesting and rich. Are there any immediate questions that you have for us? I'm thinking particularly of those for whom this is very new, and that will be the first time you'll have had the kind of overview. Any questions? They can be big questions, little questions, anything. Either raise your hand or put something in the chat. Just let us know. In terms of something that came up yesterday at our project meeting, a couple of people on this call were there, just to reinforce the point that you are, or nearly all of you on this call are lecturers, teachers in art and design at your relevant institution. This project does not presuppose that you know tech, that you know about immersive technology. Yes, there are colleagues here who have used it in art and design already, but many colleagues who will have not have done so. And our starting point is that we want to make this a project that is genuinely inclusive in terms of one's own sort of base knowledge. But in fact, if you do feel like things are running ahead of you, please let us know, because we want to be able to create at the end of this a system, an ecosystem, a set of resources, a training course that means that you can be an art and design lecturer, starting in your first year or having done it for 30 years, having no knowledge about immersive technology, and by using the ecosystem, the training course, and the resources, the methodological guide, you will be able to bring in this technology into your teaching in a way that is meaningful and valuable for you and your students. And that's our kind of bottom line.